There is a house in Blackwell, Oklahoma listed right now for $16,500. If you've been following national home prices, the median is sitting right around $420,000 right now. And you've started to wonder whether home ownership is even realistic anymore. This channel is for you. I spend my week going through listings in markets most people scroll past, looking for the deals that actually make sense and the ones that only look like deals. Oklahoma keeps coming up, and it keeps surprising me. The state has some of the lowest property taxes in the country, no state transfer taxes on real estate, and a cost of living that's consistently 10 to 15% below the national average. That's the backdrop for everything we're about to look at. Welcome back to Home Value Finds. If you want honest, no-hype breakdowns like this every week, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Now, let's start with the one that stopped me cold. Property number 1. $129,900. Sasakwa, Oklahoma. Sasakwa is a tiny community in Seminole County, in the rolling green heart of central Oklahoma. About an hour southeast of Oklahoma City. Population, fewer than 100 people. This is not a suburb. This is genuine rural Oklahoma. Open land, wide skies, and the kind of quiet you have to actively seek out in most parts of this country. But here's why this listing caught my attention. You're on Highway 56, which means you have a real road connection to the outside world. And Seminole, a town of about 7,000 with a hospital, grocery stores, and a community college, is right down the road. You're not completely off the grid. You're just close to it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This property started life as a school built in 1931, and someone turned it into a home. Inside that structure, you've got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath living space, about 2,300 square feet total. But the real appeal isn't just the house, it's everything around it. You're sitting on over 18 acres of fully fenced land. There's a small pond, access to a larger shared pond, and actual fruit trees. Apple, peach, pear, plum, plus grapevines already growing. This isn't just land. It's land that's been lived on and used. And then there's the former auditorium. Now a massive workshop space. If you're someone who builds things, fixes things, or dreams about running something from home, that space alone could justify the price. There's also a large garage, a metal roof installed over the original structure, and the property comes fully furnished. Everything you see stays. The catch? Sasakwa itself offers almost nothing in terms of walkable amenities or job base. If you need to commute to an office 5 days a week, this gets old fast. And in a town this small, resale is always a question. Your buyer pool is narrow. But for a remote worker, a retiree wanting land and silence, or a buyer who farms or keeps livestock, this is exactly the kind of property that makes people say, I didn't know I could afford this. The price per acre here is genuinely hard to find east of the Mississippi. Okay, that one is interesting, good land value, real trade-offs, but the next one brought me to a completely different part of the state. Property number 2, $115,000, Ripley, Oklahoma. This sits just outside Ripley, a small, quiet town where you're trading city noise for open space and slower mornings. You're about 45 minutes from Stillwater, so you're not completely disconnected. But day-to-day life here is very much about peace, privacy, and keeping things simple. So what stands out immediately isn't the house, it's the setting. You've got 2.5 acres of land, and right there on the property, a private stocked pond. That's the kind of feature that changes how you live. Morning coffee by the water, evenings outside, maybe even fishing without leaving your own land. That's the real value here. The home itself is modest, just under 1,000 square feet, but it's laid out in a practical way. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, plus a small office space, which honestly makes a difference if you're working remotely or just want a bit of separation. It's described as move-in ready, and that matters. No major renovation barrier, no waiting months before you can actually live there. There's also a storm shelter on the property, which in Oklahoma isn't just a bonus, it's peace of mind. For a first-time buyer who wants space and doesn't mind a 15-minute drive to everything, this is a genuinely compelling entry point. That one's a solid play for the right buyer. Now here's one that pulled me in a completely different direction. Outdoor living, lake access, and an actual lifestyle attached to the price. Property number 3, $100,000. Stigler, Oklahoma. This one sits near Stigler, a small town surrounded by lakes, rolling countryside, and a slower, outdoorsy lifestyle. You're not far from places like Lake Eufaula, so if you like fishing, boating, or just being outside, this area actually makes a lot of sense. The first thing that stands out here is space. You're getting a 4-bedroom layout, which at this price point is honestly rare. As you walk in, there's a large living room that opens right into the dining and kitchen area. It's that simple, open flow that makes a smaller home feel more usable. At about 1,450 square feet, it's not huge, but it's practical. This is the kind of layout where a family can actually function day to day without feeling cramped. There's also a covered porch, mature trees on the lot, and just enough land, about 1 acre, to give you breathing room without overwhelming you with maintenance. And here's something buyers often overlook: major systems. The roof was replaced in 2024, there's a new septic tank, and even a French drainage system already installed. That's not flashy. But those are the kinds of upgrades that quietly save you thousands. For an outdoorsy buyer, a retiree who wants lake proximity without lake house prices, or an investor looking at the vacation rental potential near Lake Eufaula, this deserves a serious second look. Still with me? Good, because we just crossed under $100,000 and it's about to get more interesting. Property number 4, $76,900. Eric, Oklahoma. This is in Eric, a tiny town right off historic Route 66. It's the kind of place where everyone knows each other. Life is quiet, and you're surrounded by wide-open western Oklahoma landscape. Now, here's the surprising part. This doesn't feel like a cheap house. Inside, you've got a fully updated 2-bedroom, 1-bath home with over 1,100 square feet. And we're not talking about just cosmetic touch-ups. This place has had major work done. New electrical, new plumbing, new windows, fresh paint, updated flooring. This is the kind of renovation that actually removes headaches. The layout is simple but functional, with a bright living space and a clean, modernized kitchen that feels way more current than you'd expect at this price. Outside, you've got over 1 acre of land, plus a large yard that actually gives you room to do something. Garden, expand, or just enjoy space most people can't afford anymore. There's also a garage, an outbuilding, and even a water well on the property, though it needs a pump if you want to use it. The catch is exactly what you expect: limited appreciation, limited job market, and a remote location that isn't for everyone. But for someone ready to plant roots rather than flip a house, and now, the one that actually made me stop and stare at my screen. Property number 5, $16,500. Blackwell, Oklahoma. This is in Blackwell, a quiet small town near the Kansas border where life is slow, cost of living is low, and you're not dealing with big city pressure. You've got basic amenities nearby, but this is very much a place where people settle in for simplicity rather than opportunity or growth. So here's what's actually on the table. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home with just over 1,000 square feet. So a pretty standard small house layout. From the outside, it has that vintage 1920s character, and honestly, that's part of the appeal. These older homes sometimes have a charm you just don't get anymore. Inside, it's functional, not fancy. You've got wall heating and cooling, plus a newer mini split system that's already been added, which is actually a really good sign. That tells you someone has at least started investing into making it livable. There's also a detached garage and a carport, which, at this price point, feels like a bonus. And the structure itself? It's described as having solid bones, which is usually the one thing you need to hear on a house like this. At $16,500, the barrier to entry is almost non-existent compared to most of the country. You're not buying perfection, you're buying control. Control to build something the way you want, without a massive mortgage hanging over you. Even if you spend $40,000 in renovations, you're all in under $60,000 in a market where comparable renovated homes sell for $80,000 to $110,000. That's equity. Real equity. So, the real takeaway from this video isn't just look how cheap these houses are, it's this: there are still affordable homes in America. But affordability comes with trade-offs, and the smart buyers are the ones who choose their trade-offs intentionally. Not emotionally, not impulsively, intentionally. And if you can do that, That's when these kinds of markets actually start working for you, instead of against you. Which one would you actually consider? And which one made you say absolutely not? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm curious to see where you land. If you want more of this, real talk about affordable homes, no hype, no fake excitement, just honest analysis, hit subscribe. New videos drop every week, and I always answer in the comments. Next week, I'm looking at a state that almost nobody talks about when it comes to cheap real estate. The prices there are going to genuinely surprise you. See you then.